It's no mystery that some of Magic's concepts and art come from real-life things, and there are plenty of cards which demonstrate this. In fact, there are even some pretty interesting cards that you might not have guessed would be doing so. I'm your host Mike, and these are 5 cards that surprisingly depict real-life things. Pithing Needle. Pithing Needle is a solid card that sees tons of play in almost all non-rotating formats. The original art shows a needle just before penetrating a character's neck, and the reprint shows a more detailed version of what this needle might look like. Pithing Needle allows you to disable any permanent and prevent them from using activated abilities, a strategy perfect for taking out planeswalkers without actually destroying them. Agricultural specialists are likely familiar with this already, but pithing needles and the act of pithing are actually real-life things. For the act of pithing, a metal rod is inserted into the nervous system of the animal, usually through the back of the neck, which then permanently disables or even depredates it. Nowadays, this is generally used as a humane form of slaughter. The Rack. The original Antiquities printing of the Rack is a little weird looking and hard to decipher. It appears to depict a voodoo-style ragdoll being ripped in two. The reprint from Duels of the Planeswalkers shows a table and chains for limbs, along with some uncomfortable looking rollers. This gives you a better idea of what's going on in the card. 8-rack players are quite acquainted with this card, but what it does is punish the chosen opponent during each of their upkeeps for keeping a hand below 3 cards. This can make deciding to play lands and spells a tough choice for your opponent. The medieval torture buffs will recognize this one. The rack actually refers to a collection of ancient torture devices that was used up until around the 17th century. The design and use varied over a couple millennia, but the basic mechanism involved stretching a person's limbs to the point where they either gave information or had their joints dislocated or even worse. Whether it be real life or magic, you should probably fear the rack. Trepanation Blade. Trepanation Blade made its debut in Innistrad, and was overall an underwhelming card. I saw its true potential though, and it did pretty well in Extended by pairing it with unblockable creatures. It's a bit of a long-winded card, but when equipped creature attacks, the defending player mills cards until they reveal a land, and then the attacking creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn for each card milled this way. Trepanation, more often known as trepanning, is an ancient surgical procedure which involves drilling a hole into the skull to release pressure and blood, generally from injuries caused by blunt objects. Magic frequently relates the library to the mind, so in a sense, trepanning skims a bit off the top of the defending player's head. If you didn't notice, the sword is also shaped like a drill. Thumbscrews. Thumbscrews saw its only print so far in Tempest, which is now over 20 years ago. The card has a rack-type effect, but instead punishes an opponent when you keep 5 or more cards, instead of punishing them for having less than 3. You probably knew where this was going based on the rack, but Thumbscrews is yet again designed after an ancient torture device. The method is pretty clear. A person's thumbs are crushed between the clamps as a means of getting them to give up information. I think the effect would be a bit clearer if it punished the opponent for holding cards, so as to punish their thumbs for holding information. Vivisection. Vivisection is a practice regularly used by the Phyrexians in their research. Of course, the Phyrexians are known for their brutal sacrifices and genetic experiments. The card Vivisection from Mirrodin Besieged depicts this practice pretty well in flavor. The player sacrifices a creature and draws 3 cards, so in a sense, they are sacrificing a creature to learn something. Real-life vivisection is a hot topic, but basically involves surgical experimentation on living organisms under anesthesia, usually to study the living functions of internal organs. Vivisection is usually a pejorative term used by those who oppose it. You can see how the flavor ties into this one. Sacrifice a creature, and learn some stuff. Those were 5 cards that surprisingly depict real-life things. Did you know about any of these, or were you surprised by them? Let us know in the comments. If you liked this video, please give it a like down below, we'd really appreciate it. If you're not subscribed, you'll want to hit that subscribe button and turn notifications on so you get a notification when our next video comes out. Until then, thanks for watching.